This is a $20 counterfeit bill that a very good friend of mine accidentally paid me with a few weeks ago. At first glance, there's nothing to be suspicious of. And it wasn't until I compared it with some other $20 bills that I realized Jackson was a little bit smaller. And there is a strip in here, pretty well done. But the material feels different. And once we compared it to the other $20 bills, we realized that this was fake. However, if we hadn't given it a second look and really inspected it, we would not have known. My point being that this has happened to all of us at some point in time, hasn't it? Where you don't even know where you got it, but somebody stops and says, hey, this doesn't seem right. And even though it's only happened to me a few times in my life, I could have easily been George Floyd. I could have accidentally gone in and spent this money not even knowing, and maybe you've had a few drinks. I don't drink anymore, but back in the day, that could have been me, but it would have ended up differently. And not only just because I'm a pretty white girl, but I think there's a few other points that I'd like to go into on why the small differences lead up to life and death. Well, first of all, I lived in New York City for 6.5 years, and I was a stay-at-home mom. And so on the weekend, after I did a dinner theater show, me and my friends, we would go out and just get rowdy, right? I was with a toddler 6 days a week, and so the one night I got to go out, we got pretty messy. I was in my 20s, it was the 90s, it was New York City, and so we were just like, just, partying as hard as we could to make up for the rest of the week. So many nights I would just drink until I had my one Subway token left. And that's how I knew I could get home, right? And so you just drink until the money's gone, and then you have that to make sure you get home. Well, I hadn't lived there very long, and I took the wrong subway. I took the 109 to the east side instead of the west side where I lived, which is very different, and over by Lenox, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was dressed in a pink nightgown and pink fluffy house shoes because we could, and we were going to see a friend's band, and I thought it would look cute. So I'm passed out on the subway looking like a cupcake in pink taffeta, and the subway stops, and I come to, and I'm surrounded by all black men because I'm going to the other side of Harlem, and me sitting there just freshly awake from passing out on the subway. And as soon as I woke up and I saw everybody's eyes on me, I immediately do what I would do with anybody, which is form a bond with them and make them feel like I trust them. And so the first thing I did was, oh my gosh, what stop are we at? Oh shit, okay. Oh man, woo, crazy night, right? And just kind of tried to be as relaxed and conversational. And even though they were looking at me like, wow, this white girl is very lost, they were saying, oh, just go around on the other side and tell them what happened. They'll let you get on the train to go back. Well, unfortunately, there was nobody on the other side, and I was starting to panic. I go up, and on the street, there is more now addicts and people who are not as maybe gentlemanly as the fellas on the subway. I look ahead of me and I see a Crown Victoria, which I just assumed meant undercover cops, right? Who else would be driving a Crown Victoria? And two white guys in the car, and they both kind of had buzz cuts. So I knocked on the window like, officer, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I drank all my money, and I had a subway token, but then I took the wrong subway and I ended up here. But I live on the other side of town, and I don't know how to get home. And they just looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, how do you know we're cops? And I was like, because you're in a Crown Victoria and you have a buzz cut and you're white in Harlem. And so they kind of laughed and were like, come on, we'll give you a ride. And they gave me a ride home. However, even as a pretty white girl, there was a moment in that car that I knew that there was a possibility that these two men could take me rape me, do what they wanted to me, and got away with it. I knew that for a fact that that could happen. I have read the stories, and especially with the fear around the NYPD. However, as soon as he asked me about my daughter and talked about his daughter, and I realized he looked at me as a mom, the relief, because I realized that these were the good guys and these were the good cops. And I'm very grateful for me and Woofy. She wants to be on tape. I'm very grateful for all the good cops out there. And my hope and prayer is that they will become the majority and that they will be the ones in power and no longer fear calling out bad behavior or weeding out cops that just have power trips and aren't there to protect and serve. So in this case, even though I was being saved by a police, I still had that fear of, as a woman, but also as a sexual abuse childhood survivor, I could be a little biased, maybe. I don't know. I feel like it's more realistic, but I always am aware if there's a man in power and you're alone, that there's a potential for things going very, very bad. So even in that situation, I was aware, and I had the best outcome. They took me home and everything was fine. But if I had been a black man, would they have been the same? If I hadn't looked like me, would they still be the good cop? Or do they just treat me that way because I look like some of their family? I look like someone they would be related to, maybe, or that they assume hasn't ever been in trouble, which is true. I do have a clean record, but I remember shoplifting CDs with my girl when we were 15, and we each snuck a CD down our pants and ran out of Kmart. And I know it's like, okay, well, that's no big deal. But if I had been a young black man and I'd been stopped, it would have been an excuse for someone in power and authority with any racist bone in their body to take it out on me and to maybe ruin my life with a conviction and then fees, and then I can't pay the fees. And, you know, the system is meant to keep black and brown people down. I absolutely believe that. And for those who say, oh, well, more whites died last year than blacks, but that's because the black population is so much smaller that whenever you take the numbers in comparison to the white population, the black population, what you find is that it's 2.5 more times likely if you're black to die at the hands of a policeman. And that's where the change needs to happen. Our Hermosa Beach police here put out an amazing statement, really empathetic towards protesters, and saying we will no longer allow any chokeholds. We will do more to hire people of color. We will make sure there is training for sensitivity and trips to the Museum of Tolerance in LA, which is about the Jewish Holocaust, and, you know, all these specific things that they're going to do to make sure that they are better. And that's the change we need, and that's what I'm hoping we'll find in the coming up reform of the police, that the good guys will be in control, because good police are necessary and we need them, and we need them to be the majority and not the ones that have to cover with this code of silence, right? So I just wanted to just share my experience recently with you with getting a counterfeit bill and my experience with police, because I feel like it's a new day coming. And, you know, the thing is, yes, I've always been polite to police. I always say, yes, officer, thank you, I'm sorry. Like, I give them that respect and that authority. But that's because I was raised that way, and my parents had good experience with police, so they feel safe with police. If I had a brother who'd been killed by a police, or my father had stories of being, you know, mistreated, and all these different stories, that I wouldn't have that same energy even coming up to a policeman. I would have a different energy of fear, which sometimes comes out as anger or as, you know, displaced emotion that is based in fear. And because I look to police as someone who will probably help me, even with the fear of a woman that I have, I override that with a feeling of this cop will most likely help me if I need them. But that is from a lifetime of white privilege. And I use that term with all the necessary education of it because I understand that even if I had gotten into big trouble, I probably would have gotten a slap on the wrist if I had fallen asleep at Wendy's. They would have taken me home. If I had accidentally spent this money, they would have helped me out. And what I hope and pray for is that that will be the situation for everybody. Thank you so much. God bless.